It.
Happy to have Rick Hulbert back with us today. This is his third time presenting with us, first on architectural photography, and then back in January, he's here with us to talk with us about AI, the good, bad, and the ugly. So, Rick, we're so happy to have you back.
Well,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
being here.
Happy to be here.
Um, yeah. So, Rick's photography is informed from his 4-decade background as a professional architect and urban designer. He is a life member of the Royal Canadian Academy of Arts and a fellow of the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada. Rick has lectured and taught photography at Simon Fraser University, Langara College, and the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada, and has led multi-day photo workshops throughout Europe and North America. His teachings reflect his knowledge of the history of the two-dimensional arts of drawing and painting, along with the sciences of human vision. Rick was one of only 2 photographers from North America invited to attend and display his fine art images at the World Art Games held in Bratislava, Slovakia,
Very
where
good.
he also addressed the global group of artists who participated. Rick, again, welcome to the Redlands Camera Club.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here. I've also been enjoying all the activities you folks are in, along with a number of images that were flashed on the screen. Very impressive. I'm going to start by hearkening back just a few years here during our recent global pandemic, when I was engaging in very limited personal hands-on photography. Let me put it this way. My wife would let me take the trash out to the curb once a week, but then I had to come back in. So I was on a very short leash. So in order to discover, I guess, new areas of inspiration for my teaching, I began reviewing the last decade of my images that have been featured in my past workshop and, I don't know, presentation endeavors. So the conclusion of that review, surprising as it may sound, resulted in a realization and actually an appreciation for my enjoyment of scenes featuring symmetry. I have to tell you honestly, I was not really aware of that at the time. So this evening's presentation goes beyond providing a taste of my surprisingly long enjoyed passion for symmetrical scenes by including my current personal exploration of how I have been attempting to creatively inject symmetry into otherwise asymmetrical scenes. I'll explain that by showing you a number of images, but let me start off here by saying this is actually an image of the Cathedral of St. Mary of the Assumption. This is a church in San Francisco. And I decided, I was really enamored with the rooftop skylight uh, window, along with this amazing chandelier that's hanging from the ceiling. And I ended up photographing it, and it's a symmetrical image. And why is it symmetrical? It's because there's a central axis of symmetry. And this axis, in this case, is in the center of the image. It doesn't have to be there, but that's where it is. It's vertically placed. And basically, a typical symmetrical images consist of 2 very similar or equal parts of a scene facing each other across or around an axis. Okay. Now, there are different terminology here. It could be relative equality, it could be geometric regularity or general similarity, approximate uniformness, and yes, it could be mirrored, but that's not a requirement. Okay. Um, so I started doing some research on why. I tried to uncover why do I have this love of symmetry. And so I'm going to quote a number of scientists. The first one here is Richard Feynman. He's a pioneering physicist. Why should we be concerned with symmetry, he asks. Well, in the first place, symmetry is fascinating to the human mind, and everyone likes objects or patterns that are in some way symmetrical. Symmetry is the one element above all else that the human eye finds most attractive. So I live in British Columbia, Canada, just north of Seattle, in a place called Vancouver. But offshore, there's an island, and it contains the British Columbia Parliament buildings. And you can see them here, built originally in 1897. It's a set piece with a central building flanked by two other buildings, but it's a symmetrical scene. I mean, even the landscaping is symmetrical, except for a missing tree in the right area of the image, over here, right? There's a tree missing. I think it just passed away at some point down the road. In any event, this is an early morning image. I love early mornings, and this is kind of first light. So then I came back in the evening, stood in the same location with the same tripod, the same camera, the same lens, and located in exactly the same location, and I got evening light. So now here the sun's setting in the west, and those lights are on all the time in the evening. So it wasn't a special day or anything, but that's an example of symmetry. It's classical revival or neoclassical style of architecture. It's derived from Greek and Roman buildings. It was very popular in civic and religious structures. It's formal, it's balanced, and it's symmetrical. That's important in this particular presentation. Now, symmetry goes back a long way. I mean, in the arts, in painting, this is the delivery of the keys to St. Peter back in the 15th century. Again, a central building flanked, in this case, by two arches. In the background, in the foreground, we've got people. Now, the people aren't identical, but they're symmetrically placed. Does that make sense? They're balanced on the left and right side of a vertical axis running right through the center of the picture. We can go back as far as we want in terms of human existence. Here's an example of prehistoric cave painting. It's called radial symmetry. It's from a central point radiating out from that, we have similar or identical elements. According to the American scientist Alan Lightman, human brains actually strive to see things symmetrically. The reason must be partly psychological, he says. Symmetry represents order, and we crave order in this strange universe we find ourselves in. It helps us make sense of the world around us. So I'm walking down the street in Havana, Cuba. I see this gentleman. He's sitting on a portion of the building that is actually symmetrical about itself. I put those kind of yellow uh, lines around it. That's the base of the facade of the building, but it's also the gentleman that's there. He's in a symmetrical position. Yes, I know his head is cocked to his right. He's got a cigarette in his right hand, but no, that's still symmetry. There's something also called reflectional symmetry. Now, this is not my photo because I don't have the courage to lean out this far from the building to take this, but you can see reflected in the glazing, the glass facade of the building on the right, the actual cityscape on the left. There's something called translational symmetry. This I was not aware of at all, but now you can see it means there's symmetry everywhere. I mean, so you have in a building or in a forest a series of trees or similar windows or overhangs or shadows that are repetitive. That's translational symmetry. Now, if we look at nature, we use the term biophilia. This is the love or empathy with nature and all living things. Biophilia hypothesis proposes that our sensory systems developed heightened sensitivity to living and lifelike stimuli of the natural world. The animals, including the spiders that we were looking at earlier in the introduction, before I spoke, they're symmetrical beings as well. Bilateral symmetry. There's a difference between the left side and the right side, but it's not a bilateral duplicate, okay? Nature teaches us that bilateral symmetry is normal and universal. There's also something called bilateral harmony. All of that feeds into balance between a left and right side of a photograph. But it's all a function of bilateral harmony, reflected or reflecting an overall bilateral symmetry. It's one of the reasons I think that nature is such a fascinating subject for photography because it has this harmony in the asymmetry of symmetry. So I'm from Canada. We have maple leaves, right? Maple trees. You probably knew this, but there are a lot of different species of maple trees. Okay, this is the mountain maple leaf, and in this case, the axis of symmetry is not vertical or horizontal; it's on an angle. But that's still okay. It doesn't have to be right in the center of an image. And now we have a maple tree, which will argue is symmetrical. The trunk is in the center, and yes, it's not exactly perfectly symmetrical, but that's still considered symmetry. Now here, this is design symmetry. I gave a workshop in London, England, and one of the things I noticed when I always arrive a few days early to suss out locations for photography is this garden that is manicured. I mean, to be very symmetrical. Right on the center of axis is the fountain in the middle of the scene. But look at the plant materials on both sides, pretty much identical. Even there's a sculpture in the middle of each of the gardens on the left and right. A little hard to see, but it's there. And yeah, that's an example. I'll call it designed symmetry. Okay. Here's another example in Charleston, South Carolina. The trees were planted symmetrically. As they age, some die, some change shape. It's not identical symmetry, but you get this great, lovely volumetric space that you can walk through. That is essentially designed symmetry. Nature builds up her refined and invisible architecture with a delicacy eluding our conception, yet with a symmetry and beauty which we're never weary of admiring. Um, and this is a quote from an English mathematician, an astronomer, a chemist, an inventor, and an experimental photographer. This is a garden in the Vancouver area. Okay. Um, doesn't have to be, plants. This is a natural scene. You probably heard of it, or maybe were there, Horseshoe Bend in Page, Arizona. This giant rock. And, the best place to stand, I found, was here where I could see as much of the river as possible winding around the rock. And yeah, that's a symmetrical scene. I'm not the only guy doing this, by the way. I'll give you just a handful of examples of other photographers you may have known or heard of, or if you're online with photography, you'll recognize some of the names. William Patino, Brooks Jensen, Tony Sweet, Cole Thompson, Joel Grimes. Don't worry, I'm going to stop now. The in biology, there's a symmetry of form and proportion, as in classical art. Nature favors the symmetrical, which is perhaps why symmetry is often something we find beautiful. And this is a Harvard mathematician that's saying this. So this is an example of my wildlife photography. This is a closet moth. I was involved in renovating an existing heritage building, and it was in the bathroom of one of the suites. There was no electricity originally when the building was built, and hence there's actually a window in the bathroom. And in this case, this closet moth is on an angle. That's the axis of symmetry there that I put on the dashed line. And if my mother was still alive, she'd be saying, Ricky, what a nice picture. But you should have cleaned the glass before you showed it to anybody. No, no, no. This is part of the joy of historical buildings. You want to get kind of the sense of history, the grit that builds up, call it whatever you want to call it, but that's the photo. Maybe some of you have heard of something called the Rorschach test, which is a psychological test in which subject uh, they create an ink blot, okay, and then they fold the paper together and they get a symmetrical scene. Some psychologists use this test to examine a person's personality characteristics and emotional functioning. I come from a family of physicians. My father was a psychoanalyst. My brother was a psychiatrist, and I'm the only one that turned out great because I decided to become an architect. What can I say? Symmetry is is automatically aesthetics. Aesthetics in symmetry, elegance, and balance is the subject. And this computer artist suggests that in physics, um, actually, that's the computer artist saying aesthetics are in symmetry, elegance, and balance. But a professor emeritus of physics suggests that in physics, symmetry is a form of aesthetics. It's a form of beauty. I got to teach a class of photographers at the University of British Columbia, and the class was composed of professors emeritus. These are retired professors from all disciplines, and they all got so excited about symmetry. It was great. It was a learning experience for me. They enlightened me to how they view symmetry. Not necessarily all the same definition, by the way, but the word is very, very common. This is the Royal Theatre in it's an historic site in Canada, and as you can see, it's a symmetrical building. There's a axis down the center of this vertically, and I do like I spent my I guess I spent 40 years as an architect designing contemporary structures, modern buildings. In photography, I love photographing heritage, especially buildings that are kind of decomposing right in front of you. You can see layers of history. I think that's because now when I look in the mirror, I'm kind of starting to see that. Okay, if I zoom in on this, you're going to see something that is it's an amazing in many senses. It's all three windows here are symmetrical about themselves. But look at the brickwork. Oh my gosh. I don't know that we even have uh, masons today that would want to do this to a building, but that's an amazing series of bricks and how they're laid out symmetrically, vertically and horizontally at the same time. Really wonderful. Symmetry is harmony. Harmony in an overall artwork is achieved when the elements of an artwork come together in a unified way. Certain elements can be repeated, yet they still look and feel like they are lending themselves to a whole. That's the artist network. So I was giving a workshop in Lisbon, Portugal. And again, I'm looking around for places to photograph, and I found this location. And I was photographing this bridge from various directions. I like this one the best. Now, when I look at it, and I actually wasn't totally aware of this when I was photographing it, I see on the hill on the upper left a religious icon structure, right? And then I see this gentleman here taking a selfie of himself with his arms in a symmetrical position. And then, of course, the bridge. Okay. Now, this bridge is huge. I'm going to try to show it to you by zooming out because this is a zoomed in image. Hopefully, it's not too jerky. If it's not smooth, if you turn off your video, it'll give a little more bandwidth to make these transitions a little smoother. Anyway, this is some bridge. Look at the scale of this thing. It's fantastic. Symmetry. So symmetrical composition is intuitive and it's instinctive. We are hardwired to look for symmetry in art. It has to do with the way our brain processes information. So this is horizontal line symmetry. I love photographing waterfront cityscapes, especially if there's reflective qualities in the water. So it depends on where you are and the time of day. This is very early morning. Water is usually as calm as it's ever going to be. This is Toronto, Canada. And the line of symmetry, the axis is actually a shoreline going horizontally through the image. Doesn't have to be buildings, it could be nature. So I had a chance to travel to Antarctica a few years ago, and I'm in the front or in the prow of a ship. So the wake of the ship, the water rippling is behind me, and the water in front of me is pretty smooth. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's not quite mirror-like, but it is fantastic. And click, this is the image I got, and I love it. It's a little bit arrogant to say that I love my photography, but my mission as a photographer and teacher is to get other people to love their images as much as I love mine. That's all that really matters. Okay. So there's a universality of symmetry. I mean, humanity flora and fauna, science and physics. Well, an example would be physics. Mathematics, the example is geometry. In psychology and neuroscience, in sports, in urban design, in architecture. How about in furniture, appliances, and fenestration? You may think, how does that work? Well, if you're sitting in a room, you probably are somewhere. If there's furniture in the room, chairs, table, desk, I don't know. If there's, they're probably symmetrical. Not necessarily, but there's a good chance. How about if you're in a kitchen or a bathroom? The appliances are usually symmetrical. I know there's a knob on one side. Unless it's an oven, then it might be purely symmetrical, but you get my point. Fenestration is a fancy way to say an opening in a wall. So it could be a window, it could be a doorway. Those are symmetrical openings by and large. You might live in a very fantastical place, which will not be the case, but generally, you get what I'm saying. How about transportation? Trains, planes, automobiles. I know in an automobile and in an airplane and in a train, the pilot, we'll use that term, the driver, is usually off to one side. The steering wheel in a car is off on one side or the other, depending on where you are. The point is, they are still considered symmetrical um, buildings or structures or um, objects. Okay. Um, how about literature? Pottery, carpets, quilts, music. I mean, I'll give you a few examples here. Um, just to show you how dedicated I am in trying to give you a full meal deal here. I, uh, I've got a quote, first of all. Symmetry runs rampant in nature. Evolution tends towards symmetry because the instructions to produce symmetry are easier to embed in genetic code and follow because of its simplicity. And this is another physicist at Oxford. But what it's showing here is that I actually got an MRI, or that's magnetic resonance imaging, through my brain. Fortunately, I was told afterwards that I had a beautiful brain, which I don't know if that means anything, except I'm just going to tell you that when I look at these three images, the one on the left is through my ears, then through my eyes in the middle, and then through my forehead above. And but when I look at it, I look at the middle one, and I have like a happy face, a happy brain. So I figured that's okay. On the right, it's a little scary because that's kind of a diabolical face. Um, I actually have horns, but that's the top of my eyeballs. Anyway, I just wanted to show you symmetry is everywhere. Okay. How about in sports? Baseball. Well, how about these are sports fields? I'm just going to name baseball, football, soccer, basketball, rugby, tennis, ping pong, billiards, board games of all sorts, hockey, etc. Right? Most Olympic sports, not all. I know downhill skiing, not symmetrical. Um, Neither is, I'm trying to think. Oh, golf is another example, not symmetrical. You get the idea. How about literature? Now, this is an interesting one because in rhymes, I call photographic rhymes. First of all, the definition of a rhyme from a dictionary says a rhyme is a repetition of similar sounds, usually exactly the same sound, in the final stressed syllables of two or more words. Most often, this kind of perfect rhyming is consciously used for artistic effect. That's out of the dictionary. So I translated that to a photographic rhyme. I made this up, all right? A photographic rhyme is a repetition of similar or identical natural or constructed objects in the opposite portions of a photograph. Most often, this kind of symmetry is consciously used for artistic effect. The background here is a famous building, Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, Germany, um, actually constructed before I was born. Uh, why am I showing this? Well, first of all, I'm standing on the axis of symmetry. I'm looking down this road in the distance. I took a number of pictures, but when I looked at them all again, I like this one the best. Even look at the horse carriage above the sculpture, the four horses, and the horsemen that are the horsemen that behind. That's a symmetrical design as well, that art. And what this reminds me also of is music. This is going to push it a little bit, but hear me out. I'm a musician. I studied music professionally. I wanted to be an orchestra conductor. My mother said that I couldn't earn a living in music, and these were the years way, way back when kids used to listen to their parents. That's not so much the same anymore, but in any event, major and minor triads on the white piano keys are symmetrical to the D key, which, if you've seen a piano, there's a series of symmetrical elements to the keyboard. That's the message. If I look at pitch structures, scales, and chords, I could argue that images can sing. So I was serious about this. Vibrations of strings and drums, okay, are full of symmetrical patterns, and they can be recorded and visualized. And look at them all. They're all symmetrical in more than one direction. It's quite interesting. Well, jewelry, okay? Not always. In this case, symmetry. Um, the scales of justice, symmetrical. Not always. I won't go there right now, but you understand what I'm saying, maybe. Um, the universe is built on a plan, the profound symmetry of which is somehow present in the inner structure of our intellect. And this is a French poet, essayist, and philosopher. So this is the Texas State Capitol building in Austin. And if you know Texas, you know that Texans tend to feel that they have the biggest and best of everything. And this is their state capitol. It's the largest state capitol in the United States, exceeded only by the capital of the country in Washington, D.C. But it's built in two phases, okay? 1888 and 1983. I'm just going to hide the floating media controls again. And what I'm looking at here, what you're looking at, hopefully, is the original building. It's significant in size. That dome, the inside of that dome is more than 200 feet above the ground. So it's significant in size. Now, if I'm going to zoom back again, okay, and we're going to look at the second phase, which interestingly was built below grade so as to preserve the character of the gardens around the original Capitol building. And where am I standing? I'm standing on the axis of symmetry. When I made this photo, the building was closed, so there are no people, which I was actually happy about. Architects, design spaces for people and their activities. But when we photograph, we kind of don't like people in the picture because they're messing up our picture, messing up our building. Anyway, what can I say? The thing I want to point out here also is that because I used a very small aperture, f/22, I get these starbursts on the light standards. But yeah, now I did get inside, but I went at the end of the day, just before I made this picture. So again, now going to have a lot of fun. I love photographing interior spaces, volumetric spaces. I'm trying to get a sense of the three-dimensional aspect of these spaces. So I'm looking up from the entry at the dome, and I'm going to zoom out because I believe there are pictures within pictures. And I'm going to talk about symmetry as balance. Symmetry is one of the fundamental principles of Gestaltism, a human behavioral theory that proposes that our mind naturally creates order and completeness in the things we see and encounter. Now, this is a quote from Mary Peterson, psychology professor and director of the Visual Perception Laboratory at the University of Arizona. That's my alma mater. And it's also an example of radial symmetry above, right, and below. So there's the foyer or the rotunda of this awesome building. So what I decided to do then was to just before they announced it was closing, right? So I quickly took an elevator up to the third floor. Remember, these are very tall. Look at a person back here and the height of the space. So it's significant. But what I try to do, I used a super wide angle lens. I love wide angles. And so this is a 9 millimeter Laowa lens. I'm not promoting them, but that's the widest wide angle least that was available when I made the photo. And I tried to get the dome and the floor in the same picture. I couldn't do that. And I didn't want to do a panorama. So I have a fisheye lens, which I find kind of can be very gimmicky, but I find when I'm photographing curvilinear elements, especially if they're circles, and I think it looks good. I like it. What can I say? But now I have the ceiling and the floor or the rotunda in the same image. Then I thought, well, can I give a little more, I don't know, excitement to the image, maybe more feeling, emotion. I use those words. So I thought, well, what if I added light coming through the openings in the dome right up here? Okay, little slivers of openings. And so I did that. I want to tell you that's not natural. I added that in Lightroom, but that was my attempt to kind of improve the image if that was my objective. I don't know if I succeeded, but that's what I was trying to do.
Rick, we have a question on
Sure,
Zoom. Do you
sure.
take panos? Is that how you take them? And if so, do you have a preferred number of stitches or pictures, or are you just using super wide angle lenses?
Okay, I do. I have not shown you any panoramas so far. I do enjoy panorama photography, and there's no limit to the number of images you can show, but I usually turn my camera vertically in kind of what we'll call portrait mode, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
and overlap maybe 30 to 40%, and keep the camera level, dead level, and then I create panoramas. The thing is, um, they're not a long, skinny image uh, isn't the easiest to show in a screen. You really want to have a hallway or a long place to show it. So in any event, I haven't so far, but I'll show you what I'm playing with. Uh, I'll call it a panorama-like image as we go through the second half of my presentation.
Thank you.
Um, Hope that was a fair answer. This is an example of translational symmetry in a single building. Um, this is Salisbury Cathedral. Look at it took 100 years to build this thing from 1220 to 1320. This tower or steeple is over 400 feet high. It's one of the last remaining stone steeples in Europe because they're so heavy that they're collapsing under the weight of their own weight, if that makes sense. But you see, it's translational symmetry. In the first floor, on the ground floor, you see the same shapes repeated. Same is true on the second, third, and fourth levels. Then you go to the tower itself. These giant, tall, and then it's radial symmetry on top. So symmetry everywhere. Now, I went there because of the interior. This is awesome. Um, I got so excited. I actually, well, it's a little embarrassing, but I'll tell you. I use a tripod. I'm very old-fashioned, especially indoors. I often will take multiple images because I want to capture the high dynamic range of light coming through the windows and then the nave itself, if that makes sense. But what I did embarrassingly was I actually accidentally baptized the remote control cable on my camera. Yes. So I treat it very gently and very carefully nowadays. But there's something about this picture I'm going to tell you that I don't normally tell people. Um, and that is because uh, when I was photographing it, it was undergoing renovation on the right half of the nave. And I've been looking for those pictures. I cannot find them right now, embarrassingly. But I just put this thing there so I can show you. It was very depressing. But I thought I'm going to pretend that uh, this is all here at the same time. So I made the photo, and then I thought, well, what if I take the left half of the scene, and because the building was designed to be symmetrical about the central axis, uh, I flip it left to right, and then I place it on the right half. Does that make sense? What I just said? You see, Um, I'm actually compositing here. This is the simplest form of compositing. All you need is software that will let you flip an image left and right, horizontally or vertically for that matter, and the ability to crop. Well, I'll talk about it more if you want, but for now, I'm going to zoom in just to show you that this is actually this is a story. I made up a story. These are twin pastors. They're practicing in unison their speech. Not true. The pastor's only on one side, but that's my example of where I started thinking about creating symmetry um, that didn't exist the way I wanted it. So now we have an opportunity for a very short, maybe 5 minute um, um, bio break, I think you guys call it. uh, so what I'll do is I'll just hold this slide here, but if there uh, unless I'm told differently, you guys tell me when I should start again. But I'll entertain questions. I'll entertain questions at the end as well. But if those of you who want to take a break, if there's a question I think should be responded to everyone, then I'll answer it again at the end. If that makes sense. So with that in mind, I'm not going anywhere. If anybody has a question, feel free to unmute and let me know.
And just a reminder to our club members that Rick has graciously offered to do a 90-minute presentation, so that's how long we'll be going today, which is why we have a little bit of a break here if anybody needs one.
I have a question, Rick. This is Heidi Wilson, and
Hi.
I'm from Arizona, and I went to the University of Arizona to get my
Oh,
master's.
cool.
To go Wildcats. Okay, so my question is like I everything you said, all the psychological things about why our brain likes balance and symmetry, but then when we are in competitions, like our photos and the judges are commenting, a lot of times I heard like, oh, that thing shouldn't have been in the center, they should have put the flower or whatever like off to the right, like so it's not like perfectly in the center. So like and someone explained to me before, but I forget what the reason was. So maybe you know this too, but sometimes our brain likes things that are off balance also. But could you like address that? I don't know what you call it, like a not a conundrum, but it's just like a difference. Like, because I like what you're saying, like what I like all of it makes me happy to look at the pictures you've shown us. And I for all those reasons, and you're explaining it, but like I'm like, wow, that's so perfect. Like the building's perfect, the leaf is perfect, your brain is like perfect. I like all that symmetry and everything you're saying is makes sense. But then I was remembering that sometimes like people are telling us, no, you don't want it right in the center. Like, do you understand? Does that make sense?
That does totally make sense. So here's my answer. Let me start off with a strong suggestion that one of the wonderful things about photography is that there are no universally accepted rules of anything. No matter what gear you use, no matter what subjects you photograph, no matter how you look at composition, um, there are no rules that are universally accepted. Unfortunately, rules have come about, and because I'm a teacher, I can blame instructors. Having rules makes photography much easier to teach. And so sometimes they'll say, learn the rules and then go break them. Okay. Uh, most of my images are not symmetrical. But because I discovered that symmetry is so powerful, I decided I'm going to try this. I'm going to come up with um, a presentation that features my symmetrical images. So I don't always use it, but I'm going to show you in the second part of my presentation how often I find that award-winning photographs are symmetrical. And I'll give you examples. And again, since there are no universally accepted rules, you don't have to accept anything I say. I'm just sharing my approach to creativity, which I'll also give you a taste of in the second half. Um, and other than that, I appreciate your question. I hope I began to answer it.
Yes, thank you.
I was just amazed on how many scientists uh, promote symmetry. Um, Notice I so far don't have photographers promoting symmetry the way I am in this presentation only. But when I show you some competition winners, then you'll start to see why, huh? And I'll also explain why I think uh, there are a lot of accolades given to symmetrical images in awards program. So I got to save that because that's something I really want to say to everyone. So hang in a little longer.
Rick, our 5 minutes is up.
Okay, so we're going to keep going. So symmetry is automatically simplicity. Simple scientific laws are preferred because if they fit or fully explain the data, they're more likely to be the source of it. Part of the answer is that simplicity is the defining feature of science. Now, I know we're not suggesting that photography is a science, but I'm just sharing. This is a professor of molecular genetics, okay? Um, so let's talk about competitions. I have fortunately been exposed to being a judge, and I have judged competitions, in some cases, national competitions in photography. Um, I don't anymore, partly because I consider myself an advocate as a teacher, not a judge. However, I'm going to show you some things here from competition speaking. This is a competition, this is a top prize winner in uh, in a competition where thousands of photographers from over 100 countries submitted entries for the Art of Building competition, showcasing the best examples of our built world. I know I'm an architect, so you have to put up with that for now, okay? Um, and so there's one example that's a high mark. What's even more interesting than that is they had an award for the Public Choice Award. So if I can say this delicately, I know it's being recorded, but the unwashed public, can I just say that, not being mean to anyone? This is what they chose. Symmetry. Um, and so I found that intriguing. Um, these are one of the winners of the 2025 International Panorama Awards. Speaking of panoramas, all right. There were more than 4,500 entries. Um, Here's one with 20,000 submissions, okay, from 62 countries for the grand prize winner, Nature's Best Photography Awards of 2025. Now, I know it's not perfect symmetry, that we're not talking about that now, right? But this is quite symmetrical. Architectural photography. Oh my gosh. Uh, this is the 2025 celebrating the finest buildings in the world. Thousands of submissions from 72 countries. On the left, you see the winner for interior architecture, and on the right, the winner for cityscapes, with symmetry both horizontally and vertically, right? There's the vertical axis right in the center and horizontal axis as well. Yeah. Let me say, when you're let me just tell you reality here. When you're a judge and you're faced with hundreds or even thousands of images, the big thing you have to do initially is to cull away the ones you don't like. Just get rid of them. And you're kind of sadly,
Rick there?
final group, if that makes sense. Judges are arguing back and forth, trying to decide because they can't agree. But in the symmetrical ones, generally they tend to agree, and sometimes that's how they win. Uh, you can take that however you want. I'm not dissing anybody. I'm just telling you my personal experience. Here's one from 2026 because the competitions aren't over for 2026, but this is in progress. So they have a finalist that they posted for Wildlife Photographer of the Year. Okay, look at this. Um, yeah, it's pretty symmetrical. It's not perfectly symmetrical, but there's a vertical axis down the center. So let me talk to you about creativity here. You probably are aware of the exposure triangle, right? The shutter speed, aperture, ISO. This is how you adjust exposure in an image. I have developed what I call the creativity triangle, and it starts with curiosity. It includes play, and it includes imagination. And this is how it works. Artistic creativity often commences with curiosity. Curiosity is very often manifested through play. Play fosters the freedom to exercise one's imagination. And it's imaginative play that best sparks creativity. So, this is a cyclical process or process, maybe as you say. I'm now from Canada, sorry. So, process, all right? Um, when I say play, people sometimes think, oh, I know this is a serious art. We're here, we're so passionate about photography. Yes, yes, stay that way. Play is not just for kids. It's research. It's experimentation. When I talk about research, it means you learn what some people feel are the rules of photography, and then you start discarding them. Ultimately, just doing whatever you want to do, especially if you want to be creative. That's a different talk I give on creativity. You might want me back for that one day, but I'm just sharing that with you now. Now, when I talk about experimentation, what I'm saying is you got to keep trying different things and you have to be prepared to fail. Failure occurs more often than successes. In fact, I'll make a statement here that if you're not periodically failing in your efforts at improving your photography, you are actually not trying hard enough. I know that's harsh, but just consider that, take a swallow, and we'll keep going here. Um, yeah. Uh, so I'm going to talk about how I'm playing. I'm going to creatively reimagine symmetry. Now, this is a symmetrical rooftop. This is the San Francisco City Hall. And I'm going to come back here. This is a long exposure, so you can see a bus went through the street there, left to right. And then you see the flags waving. But basically, I guess what I could also say here is that the lucky part here was that the sky is so fantastically colored for the dome. And I'm just going to, this is a sidelight. I think one of the highest forms of professional achievement is capitalizing on luck. I know that sounds crazy. Most of the time when luck happens, we don't have our cameras. I can say I don't have my camera. So I got a little camera that I can carry around. Now when I have luck, I say to myself, "Oh, I wish I had my good camera." So, you can't win. But in any event, that's the beginning because we're going to go inside where I'm going to talk about symmetry. Symmetry is prevalent in this building. I did not take this aerial view. However, this is amazing. There's two axes of symmetry here, all right? Horizontal and vertical. And even the even the mechanical equipment on the rooftop of shows a beautifully symmetrical space, I'm going to argue, with an elephant in the room. The elephant, of course, is the stairway. Gorgeous stair, but it's not symmetrically placed. So my little boy brain thought, well, what if can I create another stairway, huh? How about a second staircase for some serious play? Right now, I'm thinking there's a wedding going on up here, and afterwards they're going to come down the stairs and they're going to have like a party down here at the in the on the ground floor. Um, but what I did was I added another stair. So I'm looking at this stair and I'm thinking, oh my God, well, this is interesting. Visually, it kind of looks cool, right? But functionally, this could cause a lot of problems, all right? If I was transitioning from one stair to the next, I could see a lot of people tripping. I could see people who want to go from where I'm up, where I'm standing. Let's say if I was on the floor, traveling through this, this is going to be almost impossible to negotiate. There'll be a lot of lawsuits. And it reminds me, as an architect, when I had to work with a lot of engineers, in order to get some respect from them, what I would say somehow during my initial conversations with them, I'd say, if a building looks good but doesn't quite work, probably designed by an architect. Oh, they love that. They love to hear that. So that was my way of saying, no, no, we're just regular people. We'll get along. This is not working. So how about another option, I thought. I'm showing you a failure here, all right? And I'm going to show you now what I'll argue is more of a success. You may not agree. I'm creatively reimagining symmetry in this image. So I've got now two staircases. Now instead of a wedding up here, I'm thinking this is a divorce court. And when the divorce is concluded, then each member of the marriage goes down to their respective family below on the ground floor. So that's one example of creatively using symmetry in a way. Now this is the actual main entrance view. So now you see there's a stair in the center. This is a symmetrical building. Okay. I thought I did this. This is with a wide angle lens, a rectilinear lens. I thought I'll try the fisheye lens. This is a Canon fisheye lens, and it's a zoom from 180 degree, which is I think a 17 millimeters to I think I can't remember the focal length of a full frame image, and so that's an example. Okay. Then you can do other things. Let's say when it's symmetrical to start with, and you play with software that purposely distorts what you're doing, it can remain symmetrical. So this is a program called Circular Studio. I'm playing, I'm experimenting, and now I'm kind of like up in the air looking down at the stairway below, and I'm on the level, you can see up here, I'll put my cursor, I'm on the level of this mezzanine level where the wedding or the divorce was taking place, if I can say it that way. Okay, keep going. Play is the highest form of research, according to Albert Einstein. I'm with him on that. So in 2010, Vancouver, where I live, held the Olympics, the Winter Olympics, also in the mountains, of course, but it was focused in the city of Vancouver. And a number of buildings were preserved. So this used to be a salt storage facility. It was a dump. And they turned it into a beer hall. So now it lives, it thrives. It is going to be there for a long time. But it's very symmetrical, and I stood on the axis of symmetry. Um, and then I thought, well, I'm going to go inside. Well, I wasn't allowed to photograph inside during when everyone was there, which I understand. So I got permission to go in early morning before they opened. Okay. And this is the interior, fantastic interior. I mean, it is quite complex. Can I say it that way? Awesome bar, and then tables around the edge. So I'm thinking, I want to symmetrify. I made that up. I want to symmetrify this scene. Well, the first thing you got to do is find an axis of symmetry. It's not always easy to do. So, so here's what I did. This was the fourth attempt. I'm not going to show you all the misses, okay, all the ones that didn't work. This is the axis of symmetry. I like the right half better than the left. So I'm going to take the right half, I'm going to duplicate it, then I'm going to flip it right to left, and I'm going to push it together on the axis of symmetry. And now I've got this awesome bar. And why I like it is because it's actually functional. You see the space in the center where I've got my cursor? That's where the server can stand to collect the drinks to bring to the tables around the perimeter, or the check to pay. And the key is how to deal with an axis with that is believable, that you could actually construct. And you may or may not like it, but it is buildable. So I'm happy with this one. Some people would say it's deep fake photography. Yes, it's not. It's actual photography. It's a composite. Here's how I sleep at night. I have a quote from Richard Avedon. You might have heard of him, famous portrait and fashion photographer, sadly no longer with us, but he says a photograph is not a likeness. The moment an emotion or fact is transformed into a photograph, it's no longer a fact, but an opinion. There's no such thing as inaccuracy in a photograph. All photographs are accurate. None of them is the truth. I love it. Here's another building. This is a well-known building in Vancouver. It's a Art Deco, one of the finest examples of Art Deco architecture on the west coast of North America. And it's the tower, the end of this block. So let me just give you a hint because I have responsibility as a teacher. If you want to take a picture standing in the middle of the street, ideally have someone spotting you, letting you know what's happening around you. But when you're done with the photograph, walk in the same direction that you started out. Don't turn to go back. People do not expect you to turn around in a crosswalk. Just a hint I got to give you. When I was in school at the University of Arizona School of Architecture, my professor, Professor Williams, said to me that symmetry is sin. Symmetry is sinful. Why? Why? Well, because he said, if you design a building that's symmetrical on the exterior, it should be symmetrical on the interior. So here we have a perfect example of his concern. The left building, the axis of symmetry is right down the middle, the center of the building. In the right half, we have a nice lobby, but we have elevators on one side, and we have other facilities on the left. So it's not a symmetrical space in that sense, okay? So what I did was I decided I'm going to make the lobby even better. I'm going to create this awesome lobby. And before somebody says, well, you got too many elevators here. Well, no, these elevators on the right are for the first 10 floors. The elevators on the left are for the second 10 floors. And then I thought, well, can I do something even more? So I teach circular panoramas. I'm not going to show you that today because that you need to show the motion of this stuff. But this is just a still photograph from this circular panorama. I have a tripod that's 27 feet high. I know that's insane. And it collapses though. Okay. So what I do is I put my camera with a fisheye lens and I take 4 images straight ahead, behind me, to the right and to the left. And then I piece it together in software. Okay, a little complicated, but it's awesome. Anyway, so where's the tripod? Well, I removed that in Photoshop afterwards, okay? But what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to go up to this level, up at the top in the middle. Okay, there's a bridge here. That's the mezzanine level. Look back and take a picture with no, I'm going to take a picture of the existing building with no games being played, no symmetrification, okay? Because it's a very symmetrical scene. And it won an international award. So I have one of those as well. Okay. So I just show it to you. It's just, I don't know why it won. One of the critics said, no one criticized it. No one said they liked it because it was symmetrical. One said they liked the line work. Another one said that they did mention balance. Okay. Interesting. But that was that. So let's talk about the fact that symmetry is economy and elegance. Okay. So here's a way to deal with multiple images as in a way a panorama. This is a photograph that I made of a building that my firm designed. Okay, it's an urban hotel, and it's got a tower, and it's got this awesome garden indoors. So what I'm going to do is I took this image and I used it, I think more than once, of course. I'll show you, flipping it left and right. So now I've got a tower with two gardens. Okay, so the axes of symmetry are here, three of them. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I used the same image 4 times. It just happened to work. I didn't think about even doing this when I was making the original photo. It happened to be the reason it looked like it looked is because it was for a cover of a magazine. So it has to be a vertical. If you want to know why sometimes people don't get on a cover, you have to have a vertical image. Okay, it has to be the shape of the magazine cover because they don't have people to go out and photograph anymore. They don't mess with it. Either it works or it doesn't. Okay. Then I'm imagining my client looking at this and saying, this is insane. You want me to not only have a tower and a garden, you want to have 2 gardens? That's crazy. I can't afford it. So then I thought, well, how about if I do this? What I'm going to do is have 2 towers, and 1 giant garden. Oh, well, he thought that was better. Then I thought, well, I could keep going. What if I then have something else? How about if I have 2 towers, but 2 gardens, one on the left, that's for adults, seniors. They just want to rest and read quiet, no kids. On the right, family garden, family with kids, noisy, everything's fine. And so you see, I'm not saying I'm making this up. Okay, this is a real building, but I'm saying I'm making up the story, and you can say I'm insane. I have a little boy brain that helps. This is asymmetrical symmetry. One more example of that. This is a resort I master planned and designed in San Diego area. And the pool there was nobody in the pool. Perfect. The reflections are awesome. I think. I mean, I like. And click. But it's obviously more than one image pieced together. Okay. Excuse me. It's a single scene pieced multiple times. There you see the 2 axes of symmetry. This is for, remember Lawrence Welk? This is a Welk resort. Okay. Symmetry is automatically clarity. You see, our visual system may be hardwired in such a way that it's easier to process symmetric stimuli than to process asymmetric stimuli. A simple explanation for our attraction to symmetry is that it's familiar. Symmetrical objects and images play by the rules that our brains are programmed to easily recognize. Now, when you're dealing with nature, it's a little more delicate. When you have a curve and you're trying to have the axis of symmetry, in this case, vertically in the center, you got to make sure that the curve ends up to be a curve. So there's only one place that you can crop it or use it to put together to have a smooth curve in the end. If that makes any sense. This is Notobi Gardens. It's a Japanese garden at the University of British Columbia. This is the Denali National Park in Alaska. Now, the right half of the image is the actual photograph. And I'll also tell you that I compressed it. It wasn't this squished side to side. But when you squish something, things get taller and thinner. Sometimes they look better, and it's a value judgment, but I use this to make this image. This is an interesting one. I was in Portugal giving a workshop. Again, I arrived. Actually, this is after the workshop was over. I stayed a couple more days. I went to this awesome site. This is a community called Azenhas do Mar. It's a seaside village. This is the original raw file. This is before I edit it. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say I am going to make this symmetrical somehow. What am I going to do? So I thought, okay, I played around with different options. The one I'm going to show you is the one I ended up using. The vertical axis is going to be on the right. And I very carefully located that axis. All right. And then I'm going to take that. I'm going to edit the image and symmetrify it. So I end up with a Zenhas do Mar promontory. This is awesome. I mean, you arrive, you either take a bridge over or you have to drive underground to park, but that's another thing. But if I zoom in here, look at this village. I mean, it is really nice. There's a here for like they can have like lectures outside. They got this big fireplace that they can enjoy outdoors. Then they got this major thoroughfare through here. Okay, and glorious living suites or hotel suites around the perimeter. Sorry, I'm going to zoom out here. Somehow, oh, there we go, there we go. Okay, okay. Now I'm going to show you another option, which will not shock you, given that if you're still here, it won't shock you. This is the Straits of Azenhas do Mar, Portugal. And the sun was behind me, so it works in terms of sun angle. That makes sense. The light's coming in, got this gorgeous water cascading through between these two promontories. So yeah, that's another example of symmetrification. So now I'm going to just show you a couple more, okay? Some more examples, and then we'll have time for questions. So I'm going to move from documenting and enhancing reality to reimagining reality again. This is the most asymmetrical building I know of. I didn't design it. It's a beautiful building. It's at the University of British Columbia. It's a student union building. But now I realize there's a lot of translational symmetry, eh? Repetitive things moving horizontally on each floor. Fine. Let's go inside. I call it a study in asymmetry. There's lots going on here. One side's got a glass wall, and we've got student rooms on the right. Stairwell on the right. It's a lot of stuff happening. So I walked down this corridor and took a picture facing to the right. See, that's the image. So I got the glass wall on the left. I like the left half of this picture better than the right half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the left half and reproduce it. And you'll see coming up here, we've got this symmetrical space. I like it. Lots of glass. I don't know how it works. Doesn't matter. Just having fun. I listened to a great lecture from Kirsty Odom, and one of the things she showed were some of her flower pictures. And I really love this, and I took a screen capture. I shouldn't tell you this. I took a screen capture of it, and I discovered when I'm looking at it with a little more time that this is symmetry. In fact, there's two axes of symmetry here. Okay, now I see it. I didn't see it initially. I wasn't thinking about it, but that's how she made this gorgeous flower. Okay, so I thought, can I do that? So I'm looking at the ceiling. This is the ceiling of that same university building. I like the lower left quadrant. The rest, not so much. What if I take the lower left quadrant and I reproduce it 3 more times? Whoa. This is a perfect example of a building that looks fantastic, but it doesn't work. Like, what is it? Who cares? At least the rotating fans on the ceiling don't overlap. That would be a problem. That would be like the stairways that overlapped. It didn't work in the first part of the presentation. See? Axis vertically and horizontally. This is interesting. This is one of the longest stairways I've ever seen. This is in the building. It's literally a football field long. Okay, I kid you not. I like the right half better than the left half. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to symmetrify it. Okay, I like that better. And when it's architecture and there's nobody in the picture, you can do more. You can change the ratio and proportion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to widen this up to fill the screen. Now that's a stairway. That, you could probably imagine maybe somebody running for political office, like walking down the stairway. I tell you though, if my wife was in the original picture walking down the stairs and I did this to the picture with her in it, I probably wouldn't still be married, but you get the idea. Creativity is inventing, experimenting, taking risks, breaking rules, making mistakes, and having fun. Great quote from a painter. She's not a photographer, but I think it's an excellent quote for us. So I'm going to with playing with a pair of symmetrical people. Remember I told you I'd do that early on? Here's what I'm going to do. I got this idea, this crazy idea. I was in the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. And instead of books being at the center of the library, it's his airplane, Air Force One. Okay, I'll calm down. So I'm at the aft end of the airplane. And I did symmetrify this. The left half and the right half are the same because there was a gantry on the left side for people to walk across to get into the plane. I didn't like it in the picture. So I decided I'll make it symmetrical. So it kind of makes sense. Like this at the top, that's the aft wing. It's reflecting what's happening around it. So yeah, kind of works. And then, well, 2 wings, that's an airplane, 2 landing gear, 2 engines, all that is like fine. Then we come to the 2 people. We got a guy here and a guy here on the left and right walking towards each other. This is not a dance routine, but this does not look normal. So I thought, well, can I make not looking normal an image? And I want to see if I can create a scenario where we'd have 2 identical people or identical looking objects that we'll call people. Okay. So, it was mentioned that I made a presentation to you guys some time ago on the impacts of artificial intelligence in photography. And what's happening since then more and more is the notion of digital twins. All right. And on the bottom, it says it's only a matter of time before everyone will have their own digital twin. Digital humans are intended to be indistinguishable from real people. Okay. So here's what I did. This is a picture taken in London, England, outside of London, in a castle. I'm looking out at the grounds. And you can see this is the real photograph, okay? But for your interest, the guy on the right is the real human. The guy on the left is the digital twin. Okay. Oh boy. All right, just bear with me. I only got a few of these. Yeah, that's an example of 2 people or 2 looking people. One's real. In this case, the real lady is on the left. The digital twin is on the right. I was in Puerto Rico photographing dancers. And these 2 got together and they created a dress that they can both wear. That's pretty cool in itself. Um, and the dance was wonderful. I have to admit though that when one went to the washroom afterwards, the other one had to go with her. So that's one little problem with this notion. I got to teach in Cambridge, England, and I found these two guys. Actually, the one on the left is the real human. The one on the right is a digital twin. Um, but I got them to pose. And here's the thing. They love exercising. They live in a small flat, and they can both sit on this crazy bicycle they built and work out, but they don't go anywhere. It doesn't move, right? But the pedals work. If that makes sense. And so I thought I'd photograph them. Yeah, there they are. Custom built stationary workout bike for two. Couple more. This is something I don't know if you're aware of, but in the Olympics, you probably know about uh, the synchronized swimming. Synchronized swimming. Well, they're working on a new sport, a synchronized fishing event. And I'm going to zoom in. This is in Havana, Cuba, and you can see the city behind them. But if I zoom in here, they're doing a great job. These guys are so, you know, organized to be able to mimic themselves. And finally, again, this is a symmetrical digital twin example. Um, the real the real human is on the right, digital twins on the left. This is an uncanny, adversarially evolved hallucination. Like it's an hallucination that you'd find in AI, the apparent perception of something not present, resulting from generative artificial intelligence, insufficient training data, incorrect model assumptions, and data biases. So the story is this. I asked the lady on the right to look at me. I asked the lady on the left to do the same thing, and she said to herself, "No way, I'm not doing what you say. I don't listen to you. I'm not your twin." So I took the picture anyway. So that's the story on that one. We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. That is an awesome quote by George Bernard Shaw. So thank you so much for listening. I am going to just briefly tell you that I have other subjects, some of which you've heard before, but I've got one on inspiring creativity, a personal journey. Um, you just saw the creative, oh no, also a power and benefits of a creative image series. We just did Symmetry tonight. I've done architectural photography for you guys. I have also urban street photography, that's candid people, waterfront cityscape photography. Then I did the AI presentation already. Then I have one on black and white, one on color, and then four travel ones, one from Antarctica, one in Portugal, Old Havana, Cuba, and the Czech Republic. So thank you for being so patient. I will stop sharing and I will, hopefully there are people, oh, there are people here. This is good. You know, when you're giving a presentation, I have no idea if there's anybody there. So I appreciate that. If you have questions, please feel free to unmute and ask away.
Who's first?
Who wants to go first?
Well, Rick, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Typically, when I go to a subject, I go, this is the easy shot, and it's, the straight on
Okay.
shot.
Okay.
And then you got to work the angles,
Right.
which when you work the angles, you mess up the symmetry
Yes, you do. You do. Absolutely. Yeah.
mostly. But I find that the easy shot sometimes is the best shot. It's just it's the easy, it's the first one you get, and then you work it around.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes it's the more predictable or boring shot. I mean, it all depends on the subject.
Right. And that's why I showed you that one where it was a hotel and that was an off-angle shot because it's a very asymmetrical building. And then I created symmetry by, piecing it
Mhm.
together, playing the game. And I'm not saying it's for everyone. I'm just really trying to share the notion of playing around. Maybe really that's the message I'm trying to give you guys. Don't be afraid to play around, do stuff, fail stuff. I've had students who said, I can't do this. I keep failing. I said, well, put together a series of failures. Oh, it was fantastic. The images they showed were all failures. And it's like, they thought, oh, this is great. So you never know, right? Anybody else?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
just to share how I play or have played in the past with Symmetry is that I create digital mandalas. And
Okay.
so I will take like a picture of a single flower, or it could be a building, or it doesn't matter what it is,
Right.
one photograph. And much like what you were doing, Rick, you flip the photograph and then you copy and flip and then you copy and flip, then you
Yeah.
rotate, and you get these amazing kind of like kaleidoscope images. And it's
Right.
just fun. It's just fun to play
Oh
with.
no, that's super. That's a wonderful example. Yeah. I haven't done that. So now you got me thinking, but that's good. The reason I teach is it's absolutely the best way to learn. And I'm serious about that. And so people say, why are you doing this? Because, if I had to earn a living at photography, believe me, I'd be in big trouble. So luckily, I can, just try to get enough to so keep my wife happy. But in any event, I appreciate your comment. Anybody else?
Well, we've got some great comments in the chat. People appreciate your presentation, your creativity, the encouragement to play. It's there's so much to photography. It's fun to hear a different take.
Oh, I appreciate that very much.
I think that's going to wrap it up for us. Rick, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and your expertise. Yep, we're getting some hearts there, and
Oh, thank
love
you
it.
guys. Thanks, Carol.
I'm going to stop the recording.